Why is the Royal Air Force sending its pilots and its instructors to train overseas in Americanos, blue jeans and chinos? Well, that was a reference to a Holly Johnson song back from 1989, and only you dinosaurs would have understood that. Talking of dinosaurs, there's come a mile, boys, in here, innit? Look, Guy Gibbon on the left, and the guy on the right here holding the flag is, I'm not going to name him actually, but I used to fly with these two cats at RAF Valley on the Hawk T2, and now they find themselves over in Americana flying two vintage aeroplanes. Oh, that's going to bring some hate right there, isn't it? But before we talk about hating on the Davies here, let's just have a quick shout out to the mustachioed land. Look at the guy in the centre there. Enough moustache. Loving it, loving it, loving it. But I'm loving it, loving it, loving it lots more with this guy on the right-hand side. My facial hair brother from another mother, bringing it strong. I'm hearing you and I'm feeling your pain. That is an awesome moustache. What's going on in this article then, guys? Flying training takes place in Texas. Now, we do have a flying training system in the UK. You know it, because I show it, because I'm from it myself. The United Kingdom Military Flying Training System. I was a flying instructor there, as you know. So I flew with these two guys for a long period of time. RAF pilots have trained to fly in Texas since the Second World War. What the Air Force tries to do, and I'm not hating on the Air Force here, it will try and spin this as something that's normally happened. And technically, they're not wrong. I had an instructor who used to fly in Texas as well as part of this system, but it's not something that we routinely do. And we shouldn't be sending guys over there or guys to Italy that we're also sending guys across if we had a functioning flying training system that the taxpayer is paying for under the United Kingdom Military Flying Training System, a joint project between Lockheed Martin and Babcock Defence Services under the umbrella of Ascent Flight Training, in which the taxpayer privatised the profits and socialised the losses. So a Euro-NATO joint jet pilot training, NJEPs, at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is 2-hour drive of North, I don't know what it is. Bit of spin now. It's a phenomenal, I can't even say that, and I can't say submarine either, and I can't say promotion. So I've got 3 words in my life now I can't say. I thought it was only 2. This is a phenomenal program because not only does it have international participants, but it's also internationally managed. 14 nations join together to decide how to fund and run the program and what's going to happen next. He's an F-15 lad, obviously, and he says we've got a lot of instructors with different experience and backgrounds who bring a wealth of knowledge and information to us. Now, I don't want to go into the history of this, but it does fly the T6A Texan 2 and the T38 Talon. I think it's T38C Talon. Now, both these aircraft are reasonably dated. Of course, we're waiting for the T7 to come in, but of course, it's been played with a lot of delays, as we all know. Here's Guy then, Squadron Leader Gibbons, flew with him on the big jet, on the GR, and of course at Valley. He's a good lad, actually. I'm glad he's out there. He needs some top dudes. He's with the other guy out there as well, obviously leading this, which is fantastic to see. He says here, the program operates in a nation-agnostic manner on a day-to-day basis, using myself as an example. I could go and fly in a 4-ship with 7 different people from 7 different nations. It makes no difference what country a student or instructor I was flying with came from. Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point of it. It trains people together. However, we do have issues with that. I'm going to go into those details right now for you. So it talks about how if you go there, you will benefit from knowing your NATO colleagues, and that is admirable, of course. It is a very big flying training system. So Shepherd does have this weather issue, that it seems. Weather in northern Texas is pretty binary. It says down here, it's either lovely or it's bad, so because there's tornadoes and everything else there, so you do have this kind of plus or minus, as it says there. And this actually brings me on to one of the actual quite interesting points. The problem with flying guys out here and training students out here is they need to have a weather course when they come back to Valley, and some of those guys find that very challenging. The weather at Valley does have significant problem with winds, crosswinds in fact, and this is why if you come into my school in Shadowlands, you'll realize that I do like putting crosswinds on the runway to make it challenging for my students. They don't have the issue out there so much with the poor weather, and I think that is a big problem when they come back, especially in confined sort of areas that we operate back home. Also, the T38 and the T6A that we'll look at now are older aircraft than what we've got, so we'll jump on those really quickly and then we'll just look at what this actually kind of means for our training back home. So although we can look at it as, hey, we're doing training overseas, isn't that amazing? This article here says though over half of the Hawk T2 training fleet are unavailable. This is aircraft that both Guy and his buddy there came from, the one that I flew on for a long time, and it's to do with the engine and a mid-upgrade mods program and some other bits and pieces. So we do have significant issues. And of course, the RAF is asking for pilots to come back, instructors to come back and to teach on these aircraft. It can't get people to stay. And a lot of this is to do with the seniority not actually telling the truth to power. So it hasn't gone to the government that said, look, we're hemorrhaging, guys, because we've had awful pay cuts over the last decade. And I will point you to that video at the end of this one. So although it does say there's minimal delays to fast jet training as a result of the Hawk T2 engine issue, which I don't believe for a second, despite the seriousness of the engineering issue, the implementation of mitigation measures such as international outsourcing of fast jet training have reduced the impact to a minimal level. So it didn't say anything of that in the last article that the Royal Air Force had out, but I'm just saying that the truth is they're struggling to get students through this to the front line, and obviously we're struggling to get instructors to stay as well, and that's why they've obviously lent on America and Italy to help with their training. Now the T6A is an older variant of the T6C that we use, and if we have a look quickly, the cockpit of it looks like this. As you can see, I need to be a bit smaller, don't I, really? I'll move this across. But it's a couple of LCD displays. There's not much mission material that you can actually use in that. And I'll bring a picture of our Texan across now. So this is the one that we use, and the Texan, we call it the T1, but in effect it's a T6C. Now I brought about 10 of these into the service as a requirements manager as I was leaving. It's a pretty capable airplane. It's a more updated variant of the one they've got. And mission materials in there, as you can see, then you can actually build yourself a route and everything else, and it's a bit more comprehensive. So of course, by putting guys in the States on the T6, we are pushing them back into a legacy airplane. Now here's the Royal Air Force on LinkedIn, trying to work out how to do social. Never does it very well, but they're getting better, and they have got a podcast out called Inside Air here. By all means, go have a listen to it. I've listened to one or two of them. I think it was all right, actually, to be fair. It does talk about NJEPS, then the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training Program based in Texas, and it says that they're discussing it in this podcast, which I haven't listened to. But if we have a look, then we can see there's some comments down here. Christian, what a lad. He's saying, can't they take all of them? And he's absolutely right, Christian. I flew with Christian in the past. He was saying basically, look, just throw everything at them. Let's get this thing solved. And Phil down here, who is an ex-QFI, I believe, on the A400M and some other things, so quite a knowledgeable chap here, has said, the RAF has been sending some of its pilots to NJEPS for decades. Those trained over there typically had a higher failure rate on return to the UK than those trained here. This was most likely due to the training environment. Pilots were allocated a block of airspace for their sortie with a radar controller to monitor them and advise when they were approaching the edge of it, which didn't prepare them well for the crowded airspace here back in the UK. They also only flew in generally good weather, sunny and hot in Texas most of the time, so had little exposure to the grotty conditions that are here in the UK. But as has been pointed out, with our training system in such a poor condition, the RAF has become more dependent on outsourcing training to the USA and Italy. What I've just said, guys. A shame, though, as although we never usually had the best kit or enough of it, we could at least be proud of having the best trained aircrew. Not anymore. Yeah, what Phil's trying to say there is the thing I say as well. The one thing that we could outsource around the world was Royal Air Force flying training. Of course, when that was privatised back in the late 2000s, we lost that, unfortunately, and now it is the United Kingdom military flying training system. Now the T-38 is what they also fly, as you can see here. It's a lovely looking aeroplane, but it's very dated and very long. It was a sort of part of the F5 program back in the day, which I used to teach in my school. The cockpit environment of this aircraft we're going to have a look at right now. I think we'll notice something similar, and that is it's very what we would call analog in there. Not many mission materials at all. So again, quite dated. Compare this now to the Hawk T2 that, of course, the guys should be training on in the UK. T2 cockpit, we have moving maps, we have weapons, stores management pages, we have all sorts of stuff in there. It's a much more comprehensive setup than they have over in America. And this is what I think is going to be the problem. They're not only going to come back on what is quite an analog jet onto quite a digital aeroplane, they've still got to pass a course on this one, a refresher, back in the really poor UK weather conditions. And I think from what I've heard from valleys, they sometimes stumble and it can be quite difficult to get them out of the school there. And let's leave that there then. So there you go. So we are training pilots in America at NJEPS, but is it the right thing to do? Well, to be fair, it's probably the only thing to do because we lack the capacity in our fast jet flying training system to get these guys through, especially as we're not only lacking instructors on the Hawk T2 and the Texan T6C at RAF Valley, but of course We're actually lacking airplanes as well with engine problems on the Hawk T2. So we've got to outsource this. I think it's shameful, really. And also, I think that the government really have, sorry, the senior Royal Air Force have really not spoken to the government about how to retain core capability of instructors in here. And without doing that, of course, you're just never going to get these guys through. Hey, I hope that helped, guys. In that video I did talk about, I might put it above me. And that will tell you about, no money, no instructors, basically. RAF fighter pilot emergency. If you want to see that, then click on that link above, and I'll catch you guys next time.